Hey, welcome to another episode of the InNOLEvation Mindset podcast powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. I am Mark McNees, your host. And today in studio, we have a previous guest, Ken LaRoe, the president and founder of Climate First Bank. And he was originally on episode 104, where we did a deep dive into his business. Today, we're going to get into some energy policy and just some of the opportunities that we're seeing in renewable energy. Hey, Ken, thanks for coming on in. I really appreciate it. Could you just really quickly just give us a high view of what Climate First Bank does, and then we'll jump in and we'll go deeper.
Awesome. Thank you, Professor McNees. It's great to see you again. It's been a long time. Breakfast was great this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good.
I'm glad to be able to bring you up to speed on what we're up to or working on and up to. We, this week, I think 3 days ago, we crossed 1.7 billion in assets.
Congratulations.
Which was just amazing. Blows me away.
Last time I spoke to you, you had just broken 1 billion. So
wow.
You were cranking.
Wow. Yeah, boy. Yes, and the really exciting thing is a good bit of that is residential consumer solar lending.
Yeah.
We've now powered over 8,500 households nationwide.
That's fantastic.
I can't remember the megawatts equivalent, but it's huge.
Yeah.
And then we are planning an IPO. The SEC gets prickly about talking about details. But,
all right. Well, we won't do that.
Except for facts. And the fact is we're going to do one. And if we haven't got it done by this time next year, we're going to be pretty upset. So
all right.
That gives a little indication of where we're at.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you back on after you launch your IPO. That'll be really, really exciting. So, yeah, so a lot has happened since the last time we spoke. I think the last time we spoke in episode 104, I think the One Big Beautiful Bill Act had just passed or was about to pass and wipe out the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, and the subsidies or the rebates for home solar were still in place when we spoke. Can you tell me a little bit about like what's happened now that those rebates have expired? What have you seen as a funder of this technology?
There has been a lot happened since the last time we met. And at that point, we were certainly uncertain, like I think everybody was, especially everybody in that industry, as well as the consumers. And I guess we were probably hopeful, and we were probably hopeful, very hopeful for the nonprofits that had all been granted the contracts for the implementation of the IRA and all that.
Right.
And of course, none of that survived.
Right.
On the solar side, we had positioned our product, our consumer product, we never relied on the tax credit. All of the fintechs that were doing it were relying on the tax credit and requiring that to be paid back down against the loan. Well, we never built it in. Maybe a little bit philosophically because we felt like this is necessary. This is economically makes sense. And therefore, maybe we shouldn't be subsidizing it as a society. I don't mind the subsidies, and especially to kickstart something, but we're there, you know.
Right.
You had made the comment when we were talking before that the previous administration was super supportive and pushing it. This administration's gutting it, but the market has come back and said, no, this is necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a really interesting time where we had a very supportive administration who wanted to electrify America and bring in sustainable energy. Then we had a radical shift against that. And then what's super interesting to me, and we'll get into this later, is the market is saying, no, actually, renewables make the most sense for our company. And it's a market-based decision. It's not an environmental one, which, hey, however you come here, then great. But right. I've found that really, really interesting, and I definitely want to like jump in and see how Climate First Bank is responding to that shift.
Absolutely. So a number of things. If the consumer did not get their solar system installed by December 31st, they lost the tax credit. So there was a gigantic rush. We did a huge volume in October, which is about the maximum number of days before December 31st that they could actually get it installed. We did $60 million in consumer solar that 1 month. November, it dropped off quite a bit. December, it dropped off even more. January, it just went through the floor.
Mm-hmm.
February, it's starting to inch back up. But January and February are off months for solar. Anywhere where it's cold and there's snow on the roof, they're not doing solar. We are really optimistic, which may seem completely counterintuitive, but we're looking at it as like they said, don't let a good pandemic go to waste. Don't let a good recession go to waste. Don't let bad energy policy go to waste. And most of the fintechs that finance this are now filing bankruptcy, which is fantastic because they were all super predatory, super bad for the consumer. A lot of the bad installers are filing bankruptcy, which is great because just the good ethical ones are left standing.
Right.
And the stuff that's driven by the demand, the AI centers, is causing all this other cool stuff to happen, like battery energy storage.
Yeah.
So we've gotten heavily into battery energy storage finance, which is a specialty thing and super fun. We're doing a lot more community solar. We're partnered with a number of green banks to launch solar in that public-private space. So just there's all kinds of opportunities. And I think at the peak we hit 1% of the national consumer solar finance. We were doing 1% of it. We see ourselves doing 10, 15 gradually, but taking a large portion of that market.
Yeah. Now, it's my understanding that you're developing a proprietary AI agent. Is that correct? Did I read that correct? And you're working with UCF engineers on that. Is that right? So kind of how are you viewing AI and especially how it's going to impact community banking?
AI is going to put community banking on its ear, quite honestly. The reference to the UCF engineers, we actually bought a little company that was founded by two UCF AI engineers. One of the founders stayed on with us, and he runs our AI portion of our tech company, which is One Ethos, that we own under our holding company. And they do all the proprietary code for all our stuff, the consumer solar, the commercial solar, the installer B2B platform, and then they're building AI for us internally.
Right.
And we're currently working on 5 AI agents. We've launched a couple. I do not know of any other community banks that are anywhere close to us in the adoption of AI. I would say we've embraced it to the extent a bank can embrace it, because at least initially, because of our security issues, we have to be super secure, but we're doing really cool stuff with it.
And obviously, I don't want you to reveal anything that would help your competitors and stuff like that, but maybe take me through like ground level, like what are you viewing these AI agents to do, or how is it going to impact your daily consumer, or will your customer, not really your daily consumer, but your customer or whoever's banking with you, is this something that they're going to notice, or is it just going to be running in the background and they're going to feel like they're getting better outcomes from your bank?
That's a great question. Our hope is that it's not only transparent, but it dramatically improves the customer journey, whatever that might be. And one of the agents a big help on AI agents is the fraud detection security piece. And that's really cool. If it can start doing all that triangulation in the background, that's a really important one. But as an example, on the commercial solar piece, we've developed a product for small commercial that's 500,000 and less.
Okay.
So the person that owns a bowling alley and they want to put solar on, it's 300,000. they can go online, do a 30-second application, and in 3 minutes have their approval. Well, the only way they can do that is our agents going out and, with the tentacles, pulling all the data from like the state business databases and stuff like that. So that's one example. That's all in the background.
Yeah.
But it makes that business person's life way better.
Okay, cool. So AI data centers, and this is more for the listeners, not you. I mean, they're different sizes, but your average size, my understanding is they draw about the equivalent of 80,000 residential homes of power, and they use about 5 million gallons of water every single day to keep it cool. And so I think we're 2 years into a major innovation that at least in my opinion is drastically different in the sense of any other innovation because of its energy requirement and its cooling requirement. And then also we have a dated infrastructure in the United States that just isn't capable of delivering that much constant power and reliable power to these data centers. And I think we've seen data centers go in early, and some states adopt early, and found out that either the estimated power usage that the data center was telling the utility we're going to do, they're not hitting those numbers. And then also that they didn't pay for the infrastructure, and a lot of regular people, just people living their lives and not tech people, are seeing their utility bills go up $30, $40 a month with no increased benefit to them. And in my mind, what we're seeing is a very good example of corporations externalizing costs while internalizing the profits. So when we look at this and we see this coming in, and I know nobody has a crystal ball, and I know different states are trying to do different things. What are your thoughts on how we can protect your everyday citizen, against kind of these unintentional consequences that maybe policymakers don't really understand, and it's negatively impacting them? And we'll leave you with this statistic. Last month, we had a record 4 million homes power turned off because they couldn't afford their pay bill, but we're also seeing record profits for these corporations. So how do we, in your mind, and you're looking at it, and you trying to make a difference, how do you view that, and what do you think can be done about it on a business level and policy level?
I think policy is first. Policy's got to drive it. Under our current capitalist system, there's no way any of the business interests are going to step up, especially in this day and age of pay to play.
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, and all they've got to do is grease the skids of some politicians and get what they want. So therefore, is there going to be a solution? I'm probably, as a naysayer, I'd say no. The consumer is going to really be harmed in this for a long time. The solution is pretty easy. It's renewable energy. Mm-hmm. Everything the Trump administration's been gutting, which makes no sense except for the dirty energy interests that he's made promises to. I'm not optimistic. I've got solar on all my properties. Mm-hmm. That's great. But what do I do about my friend that does my yard,
right?
At my house, and his family can't afford their electricity anymore.
Exactly. And I think that is where I'm having a real issue. Like when I read about the 4 million people having their power cut off, and then had just read an article about basically record profits and how all these utility companies are seeing record profits because of the energy increase and things like that. I think that we're flirting with some angry citizens, and I think rightly so, that that making Joe and Mary pay for the expansion of some of these major utility companies and things like that. I also feel like we're in a really interesting place where right now, if you had all the equipment in place for gas and oil powered power, that it would take 7 years to actually build out the infrastructure to even power these AI centers. And the real opportunity, I think, here is that you can do that. You can deliver that power without any upgrade to the power grid and deliver clean energy with the battery storage. And it's the first time really in the past few months that not only is solar energy the right choice for the planet and people and things like that, but it also it is the right economic choice, not only by cost, but by speed too. It's just speed of delivery. And just me like seeing Climate First Bank and everything, it seems to me like you're in a really good position, even though these solar loans would be absolutely massive to it. But do you think the financial markets understand what's going on? And do you think that the policies in place to allow the financial markets to fund this AI boom in a sustainable way? Or is that just because of the current political climate is going to be too difficult for companies to make those decisions?
Okay, so what do I think of the finance industry?
Yeah, I'd really like to understand, I'd really like to understand the financing mechanism toward these really large dedicated solar fields for AI data centers, and how the financial markets and banks, how's the money going to work? And are you guys, specifically Climate First Bank, is that a goal of yours to be part of that? And if that's a trade secret, then you can say I'm not answering. It's fine. But I'd like to understand the money aspect of it, as I understand and write about the kind of the implementation of it and everything, but I don't have a very good education. I don't think probably anybody listening really understands the money behind it and how it works. And then again, naively, it seems like Climate First Bank would be in a really good position to take advantage of this, and not advantage in a bad way, but take care of your like the opportunity has come to you, right? Like
big time.
So how have you as the CEO going to meet that challenge, or are you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm optimistic in that front, and I'm not a normally optimistic guy, but the pieces are in place in the finance industry, and there's a lot of it going on. These utility grade solar farms that we see here in Florida off I-75, the gigantic things, those are funded largely by big banks or other investment type vehicles, because they're big dollars. Small banks just can't lend that much. The rough rule of thumb is, well, it depends on jurisdiction, but in Florida, it's 25% of capital is what we can lend as our largest loan amount. We're right about 40 million now. So we're starting to get to where we can do big loans. So far, the big deals we do are generally like community solar, 10 million-ish or whatever, and battery energy storage, 10 million-ish. But we're about to get where we can start playing in that big space, and we have the subject matter experts to do it. But the big banks, they've been doing it. They've got really good subject matter experts. I mean, I'm just optimistic. The money's there, right, and the market's there, and the economics are there, like we talked about initially.
When you talk about the big banks and being part of this, it's a little bit surprising to me that a big bank would have been nimble enough to be there. Is it I know that AI data companies, and especially those who are building the data centers and everything, like finding the energy is a real issue, and then also just keeping them cool is a real big issue as well. Do you think the drive to find that energy and then finding out that sustainable or renewable energy is probably financially the best choice and the quickest choice, is that being driven, do you think, mainly by the financial markets, or do you think that's being driven by the AI companies and who need these data centers?
So I'd say it's more market forces that are driving it. And then the big banks, to answer your question on the nimble enough, they've been doing it for a while. I mean, renewable energy has been there for a while,
right?
Whether it was wind way back or hydro or whatever. So they do have subject matter experts, and there are some values-based banks that are big enough to be looking at larger stuff, like Amalgamated Bank in New York, Southern Bank in Little Rock, Arkansas. So there's some of my brethren are getting big enough too.
So is that an area that you see as an area for growth or aspiration for Climate First Bank?
Absolutely. And we just brought on an executive out of the utility scale renewable space, and she's just knocking it out of the park. She's got all the contacts in the industry, and yes, absolutely 100%.
Okay.
And that's part of what we're filling the gap on the consumer until we get it built back up. Is we don't want to, at the end of the year, we don't want to look back and say, how many megawatts of energy did we finance, and go, oh no, we went backwards. We want to go forwards, with that. And that's what really motivates us immensely. We love making profit. We love the capitalist side of this equation. But when we can say at the end of the year, we financed giant megawatts of power, that's cool.
Yeah. When you're thinking about the industry and say that ultimately solar plus battery plus storage or whatever becomes kind of the clear choice in the next, say, 5-10 years and things like that, how disruptive do you think that would be to the residential market? And is that ultimately, are we going to see solar happen with solar like we saw with TVs, like TVs just keep getting cheaper and cheaper, bigger and bigger and cheaper and cheaper? Is this commercial rush, especially the AI data centers, are you expecting more efficiency and the prices are going to come down and trickle down, I guess, to residential users, or is it going to go the opposite way? And it's like the AI data centers are demanding and there's such demand and lack of supply that residential, the opportunity for families to have renewable energy in their homes is going to become out of reach.
That question has been answered by some. I don't know the answer, though. I think we're in a conundrum with the current administration's desire for all the solar panels to be built in the U.S., which is honorable. I don't have any objection to that.
Yeah.
And then the demand. So we've got a constraint of supply.
Right.
And they're shutting off the faucet to China, which I agree with completely. And then we've got this huge demand. So it could impact the consumer in the short run. As far as the cost coming down, I think that will happen because there's going to be such demand. And then hopefully the competition will kick in and force the producers to. But the panels have gotten so much better in the last decade. It's so much more efficient. And then we're on the cusp of battery technology. There's huge potential gains there.
Yeah, that's been kind of like the silent hero through this whole process of the biggest detractor of solar and wind was you can't run it, or if it's not blowing, it's not windy, you can't generate power, and if it's not sunny. And the battery technology increases and the battery costs have dramatically come down, and finally it makes more financial sense to go with solar plus storage than it would be, and it's more reliable. One policy that my brother's building a home or just built a home in California, and my brother is about as far from an environmentalist as you could come. I mean, he's not like actively dumping oil but I mean, just something to think about it, right? But he put solar plus storage in his home, and I thought that was a really interesting decision, especially from him and everything. He's like, oh no, like all new homes in California are mandated to have X amount of renewable energy and plus storage and everything. And I thought about that policy, and it seems to make a lot of sense to me for the long term, and especially it's a lot cheaper to install solar and battery or storage while you're building the house versus coming in and retroactively doing it and things like that. Do you think that that's a policy that could scale to corporations, or do you think that that's always going to be kind of a state issue and a residential issue?
Like I say on everything, thank goodness for California, right? Because, of course, that would never pass in Florida or Texas or wherever. But to me, it should be policy independent or policy agnostic or whatever, because the economics are there. And that every libertarian should be all over producing their own power and having their own energy. Every conservative should be all over energy independence. And some are, quite frankly. In Texas, the ranchers love solar because they're making a whole lot of money on land they couldn't make that much money on. So this really isn't a red or a blue thing, or at least it shouldn't be, but I don't think there's going to be enough policy. So I have to rely on the markets.
Yeah, no, I got you. I started watching a program. It's called Landman. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it is very interesting because it takes place in Texas, and Billy Bob Thornton, I believe the actor, is the main actor and everything. And he's the landman who's basically like keeping the oil flowing and pumping and everything. But it's a very interesting script because obviously wind and solar and a bunch of other kind of like topics, energy topics are coming into it and everything. But watching the show, like oil, like besides like the product, it's such a dirty business. Like it's so like oil pumps are ugly. Like the containers that store the oil like are always like rusty and ugly and everything. And I was watching the show and just watching the scenery and everything. And then I thought of a quote of Trump saying that solar and wind are really ugly and and everything. And I'm like, it just struck me. I'm like going, well, it's definitely not as ugly as that. Especially when those pumps like go and there's black oil all over and stuff like that. I'm like, does anybody want to? Well, I actually like solar fields. I think they're really cool looking, but I think they're definitely better looking than oil derricks and stuff like that. Which coming from California, Southern California, they have all those oil derricks right off the coast, and they're not pretty at all. And if you get up close to one of them, they're really not pretty. But I don't know if we should be passing policy on the aesthetic value of our energy either.
It's a good point though. So like you said, the dirty energy is a blight on the earth and a blight on the earth.
Yeah, it really is. It's a double blight. Yeah. No, absolutely. And how dangerous it is and things like that. So I'm really optimistic. Like I've gone through this huge kind of like cycle this year or, over the past 12 months with like the policy coming out. And then I was really proud of Florida, at least in committee, they passed a 12-month environmental study on any new AI data centers coming.
I did not know that.
Into Florida. And I read the bill and kind of analyzed the bill and everything. And I mean, it wasn't perfect. No bill is perfect, but I thought it was very, very thoughtful. I wish I could remember the senator who introduced the bill. He was a Republican though. And, you think, I mean, we're the sunshine state. We should be the sunshine powered state. But I think the real difficulty of putting an AI data center that's using 5 million gallons of water, fresh water every single day is we're already in Florida in a water crisis. And to put that much more demand on it is really problematic. And I think like the promise of all these like great jobs, yeah, there's good paying jobs when they're building these data centers, but I don't think most people know that like 7 engineers essentially run, these massive data centers. So, I mean, yeah, there's 7 well-paid people, but it's not delivering on like the promise of, the rising tide rises all boats, right? Right. It only rises the super yachts and and things like that. So I was really proud of Florida, and I'm kicking myself. I can't remember to give especially as a Republican, to give them credit for sponsoring and getting that pass-through thing. But I think it's really, really optimistic. And I think it's going to be a huge challenge for us just because we as Americans have allowed our infrastructure and our grid to just degrade so much. I was listening to a podcast with somebody who's an expert in grid technology and everything, and the host asked them a question and said, if we were just going to start from scratch, is this how we would do it? And they just laughed. They're like absolutely not. And I just think distributed power, like we're living in the age that it's the right time and everything. And I think the ironic thing is that these energy and water hogs, these AI data centers, may be the thing that actually save us and make solar and wind and storage more viable. That's kind of like my take on the future. Like, how do you see this all kind of unfolding?
Well, big picture, I mean, I agree with you. The AI may be the irony of the opposites that helps launch it, but then we also have to look at Florida hurricanes, power outages, and I think Sid Kitson proved with Babcock Ranch that you can be completely self-sufficient and has become a model. I mean, you can't get an interview with Sid Kitson because he's got so many interviews from all the national press.
Yeah, so, it's been, just for our listeners real quick, just to give some context of what Ken just said, the Babcock Ranch is a planned community down in South Florida. It's a unique community that was built to be 100% sustainable power, and the community is really cool. They didn't build any houses where I think 150-year flood would flood them, and also all the plants there are indigenous to Florida. It really, to me, is the city of the future. And when a hurricane came through, I forget which hurricane it was.
I forget.
Okay, but basically I went down like a week after that hurricane. I brought a bunch of students down there, and I was talking with Sid. He was giving us the tour, and they had a parade that weekend, and everybody's like, are we going to cancel the parade? He's like, there's no reason to cancel the parade because like there's nothing right. But you like driving in, you look like you were in a war zone. And then you get into Babcock Ranch, and he told me, like, I forget how many billions of dollars that storm cost Florida. Babcock Ranch incurred $10,000 worth of damage. That was it. There was zero disruption. And that was it. I mean, that was a major, major storm. And I think to your point, like distributed power, respecting the land, respecting nature, not building where we're not, meant to be building, which, it impacts all of our homeowners insurance because some people want to build where they shouldn't build. Right. And the earth says no. And if the earth says no, well, and then I think, all of these things, and then just the resiliency, and especially seeing extreme weather events, that it's more resilient. Distributed power is more resilient than what we have right now. So I thank you for bringing up the Babcock Ranch. I just wanted to give people a little bit of context of it. So please continue, Ken.
A uniquely Florida thing, which is applicable worldwide, of course. So that was pretty much it. I feel good about the economics working, the market moving, and it's just going to happen. What the issue is how far set back are we? Because we talked a little bit about ICE-powered cars and electric cars earlier at breakfast. An electric-powered car is just so far superior to an ICE car, but we need the infrastructure to make it work. And then all of a sudden, that's all gone away for the short a run, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the market's stepping in on that. I mean, I've been driving an electric car for 6 years now, and I was very enthusiastic when IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, passed, and I thought a lot more infrastructure was going to go in, and there was a lot of problems with that, and the infrastructure is still there. It irritates my wife to go on long trips with me in my EV. I knew I was an early adopter on it, and I wanted to support that. So I just factored that into things. And I'm old enough anyway that after 2 hours of driving, I'm ready to take a break anyway. But yeah, infrastructure, especially if you want to go to remote places. Like if I just wanted to drive Tampa, I have no problem, right. Or something like that. Or I drive to Jacksonville for the day and I surf and I come back in my EV. I do it back and forth. I stop in Lakewood City. I charge for 20 minutes each way, and it's good to go. So it's just, but I think with battery technology too, just improving so much, and those improvements are really going to move. Like people ask me, would I ever go back to a nice car? And I can't even fathom doing that. In fact, when I do drive an internal combustion engine car, the power, there's no torque, and and I can't tell you how many times I've left when I was driving my parents' car in California. I would get out because you don't turn off an electric car. I would get out of the car and go into the store, and I'd come back out, and the car would be still running. Yeah, I'm like, whoops, So I just forget and everything. But yeah, I love. It's interesting when I read articles about people hating their EVs and everything, and it's I talk to a lot of people who drive EVs. It's kind of like at the stops where you charge, it's like a social hour, and so you're talking, hey, what kind of range, all the questions are the same. What kind of range do you get? What is it? All that kind of stuff. But to a person, nobody would go back to an ICE vehicle. And it's just such a superior kind of vehicle.
What's your range? What's your 0 to 60?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a Volkswagen ID4, which I really like. I've had Volkswagens most of my adult life, and I think they're a really good car company. I didn't go with Tesla. I think they have a superior technology and battery technology and things like that. But I don't think they're a car company. I mean, they're not a car company, and I needed it. So I decided that I wanted a car, but I am thankful, I guess, for what Elon did and just mainstreaming EVs and things like that.
Absolutely.
Just to kind of wrap this up and everything, just for us who are kind of on the outside, we're not on the front lines like you are in viewing this. What should be? Let's do this from a consumer level. At what point should a consumer really think about doing solar plus storage? What do you feel would be the first steps in them determining if that's the right choice for them, and then outline the application process if they wanted to see if they qualified for funding from Climate First Bank?
I'd like to talk about it from the perspective of whatever source the funding comes from, because it's critical. To determine whether it'll work for them, the best place to start is an honorable installer. Mm-hmm. And that industry has a lot of bad actors. Mm-hmm. We have a list of 480 some installers that are on our platform, and we deplatform them at the first sign that they're doing anything nefarious. So we can help with your local installer, wherever you may be, whether
Yeah.
you're in California or here.
So you go to Climate First Bank website and you have a section there that basically vetted contractors.
Yes.
Which I think is that's a huge service, because you're right. There's so many back actors. I think a lot of people would have gone to renewable energy, but they're scared to get ripped off.
Yes. And a high probability they will. On our website, it doesn't go to the installers, but you can go to us, and we have subject matter experts. A lot of the questions we can just answer, whether it'll work for that consumer or not.
Okay.
If not, we can direct them to one of our favorite installers. And we have favorites that treat the consumer really well and easy to work with and make good on their promise. Most people will qualify, and their property is sufficient for it. And then you've got that new trend of the, I don't know what they call it, the porch solar, or where you can just hang it off your apartment building or whatever.
Yeah, I have a guy who has been desperately wanting me to support that cause, and I'm not there yet. Plug-in solar, I think, is a nice idea, but when you really get into it, the ROI, and then plus, what terrifies me is people doing a plug-in solar in their apartment building and hanging it on a balcony. They're probably not contractors, so I'm not there yet. I understand it, but go ahead. But there's a guy in Florida who desperately wants me to support that and get it.
Balcony solar. That's what I was trying to.
Balcony solar, and I just, it's like a big sail, and it's windy sometimes in Florida.
Can you imagine?
I'm pro renewable energy, but I'm against decapitating people.
Yeah,
so.
Can you imagine the hurricane, those things sailing?
Yeah, no, I can. It's
100%,
too vivid. That's what I think of when he first came to me with it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this seems like a really bad idea.
100%.
But I understand the desire for it, and if it could be done in a safe way, I mean, obviously, I would support it. But
in closing to that comment, the most important thing for the consumer is be careful. Use a reputable installer. Do not fall for the prepaid leases that are all the rage right now.
Yeah.
Because all the old finance companies the fintechs that were doing the solar financing were using the dealer fee model, where they would charge the dealer 30% or 40%, and the dealer would put it in the price of the solar and not disclose it to the consumer. Well, this prepaid leasing, because the tax credits went away.
Right.
So there's no individual tax credit, but you can still have the commercial tax credits for another year.
Right.
And so these companies have all sprung up where they'll go to the consumer, and their consumer has to prepay for the solar 70% of the cost, but they don't. Who's going to loan money on something that they don't own? And so the installer encourages them to get a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan, put the 70% down. Somebody else owns the solar, the whole system.
Yeah.
And yet the consumer has to maintain it. And they give them a letter of intent that says after 6 years, the consumer can buy it at a discount, but it's just a letter of intent. It's nothing contractual. It is the biggest consumer ripoff that we have ever seen, I think, in the history of America, and it's just beginning to play out. So
I'm glad you brought that up.
Don't sign any leases out there, the listenership.
Yeah. No, I really do appreciate that. And I know that there is, a lot of confusion out there on the consumer side, because we've heard so many stories, and thank you for bringing up that one particular event. So besides going to Climate First Bank and then taking advantage of those resources that you've put out there and asking for reputable contractors and stuff, I guess a couple of questions. Say somebody has a 2,200 square foot home, and they have a utility bill that's running $300 a month, let's say. Like, is there any rule of thumb that you have in your mind where transcends being a stewardship of the planet question to this is just smarter for my family, this is a better economic decision for my family? And do you have a range, like if you were having a beer with somebody or something and they said X, you would say you should look into solar?
That's a really good question. And we have the data just based on our experience. And we've determined that our average customer saves $44 a month off their electric bill paying our loan payment. And that's today. And then with the AI centers, electric costs are going up 5 to 10% a year in every jurisdiction. So starting today, you're money ahead. 10 years from now, you're going to be way money ahead. So it works almost always. There is a little bit of multifactorial stuff going on, trees, roof, that kind of stuff. But almost always works, and our average customer saving $44 a month. So
that's great. How long is the loans typically?
We have 3 products: a 10-year fully amortizing, a 20-year fully amortizing, and a 30-year fully amortizing.
Okay.
You get the loan, the rate's fixed for 30 years. There's no silly business. You can pay it off anytime. There's no penalty for paying it off. And the panels, I think now pretty universally are warranted for 30 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then they last way longer.
They do last. I read a report on solar panels that were installed in the 70s, and they're still at like some crazy amount of efficiency, like 87% or something like that. Like they're just keep producing.
And they don't break.
No.
We've had them on our house for, 12 years or more. And the only problem we had was somebody shot one of them.
That would be a problem.
Because we live in Florida.
Yeah.
And it's, the gunshine state.
Yeah, that's true. I've never heard that, but yeah.
You can shoot anywhere you want, anytime you want.
Yeah.
So that's the only panel we've had taken out was with a gunshot.
Okay.
And we've been through hurricanes. We've been through trees falling.
Wow.
So I almost said they're bulletproof. they're not bulletproof.
They're not bulletproof, but that bullet probably would have gone through your plywall. Is that what it's called?
Well, through the roof for sure.
Yeah. What is that wood stuff though?
Plywood.
Plywood. Yeah. Plywood.
Yeah.
Plywood. Yeah. So, all right. Ken, I really always enjoy speaking with you, either over some avocado toast or across from a mic. You're doing great work. Just congratulations on your success. Congratulations on moving toward an IPO. Just wish you the best in all of that. And thank you for just being a champion of renewable energy and the climate.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you for your program at FSU. I'm an FSU grad.
Yeah.
So,
and a Seminole 100.
Yeah, this is an amazing program.
So
I'd love for my grandkids to go here.
Well, we would love to have them. So cool. Hey, thanks for tuning in to another amazing episode of the InNOLEvation Mindset podcast powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Hey, if you like this episode, be sure to give it a like. And hey, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another amazing episode. And if you're interested in solar, be sure to go by Climate First Bank's website to get more educated. We'll see you next time.